greater than mentally sick atheist and not even ashamed. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true, the other is to refuse to believe what is true. Soren Kierkegaard 1833-1855. Newsweek reported in 1992 that more than 3/4 of all Americans pray at least once a week. Even among the 13% who are atheists or agnostics, nearly 1 in 5 prays daily believing that there is God who hears them. Life magazine story of 1994 says that 9 out of 10 Americans, ignoring speculation that God is dead, pray frequently and earnestly, and almost all say God has answered their prayer. Time magazine poll 1996. Faith and Healing found that 82% believe that prayers could heal. William James, scientist of late 19th century, said no mental modification ever occurs which is not accompanied or followed by a bodily change 100 years later. Norman Cousins succinctly summarized the modern view: belief becomes biology. Reality, atheists are simply lying through their teeth. Scriptural validation. Quran repeatedly mentions about the deniers that there is a disease in their hearts. I took this as an expression of God's disdain for the deniers in allegorical terms. Until I came across a study conducted by some German scientists, which confirms its reality in unequivocal terms. With this conclusive finding, there remains no doubt that the Holy Quran is the revealed Word of God. Because such a revelation, with such a certainty 1,500 years ago, would simply have been beyond the scope of human imagination. Here is what is said about disbelieving people in Quran. Surah Baqarah 2, v. 7 and 10. God has sealed their hearts and their hearing, and on their eyes there is a covering. Theirs will be an awful doom. In their heart is a disease, and God increases their disease. A painful doom is theirs, because they lie. Surah Baqarah 2, v. 6, 7, 13 and 136. As for the disbelievers, whether you warn them or not, it is all one for them, they believe not. God has sealed their hearts and their hearing, and on their eyes is a covering. Theirs will be an awful doom. And when it is said to them to believe, as the people do, they say, shall we believe as the foolish believe? Beware. They indeed are the foolish, but they know not. Philosophical vindication. Here is a meaningfully befitting, worth pondering, quote of Maya Angelou. We allow our ignorance to prevail upon us and make us think we can survive alone, alone in patches, alone in groups, alone in race, even alone in genders. Shocking vindication by scientific research. Excerpts from the research are reproduced here below. New information from a 22-year-old study at a German university has many psychiatrists and psychologists throughout the world wondering if atheism is a sign or warning of a more serious mental illness already present or in the process of developing. Doctors are searching for a gene that might cause a correlation between serious mental illness and what they are calling overt atheism. For the time being, psychiatrists and research psychologists in Germany and Switzerland dare calling this medical anomaly the misfit syndrome. Doctors at the university in Hamburg, Germany have been investigating the connection between religious beliefs and overall mental health, and the results of the study have unnerved even the most stoic scientists, physicians and researchers. In other words, overt atheism, that is professed as a way of life by some individuals, a manifesto of sorts, was found to be a common component inherent to many people suffering from other forms of severe mental illness, said Dr. Hans Zimmermann, MD, PhD. We started to notice that many of our experimental volunteers, those who were defiantly atheistic in their beliefs, are suffering from various forms of dissociate disorders and social adaptation manias also. This came as quite a shock to us as we studied patient after patient, because for years we have been led to believe that religious zeal was often a patently obvious sign of mental illness, but in fact this is not the case. Quite the contrary. The individuals we have studied, especially those under the age of 40 who actively participate in open debate about their avowed atheism, or people who are very strident about their atheism, are heavily prone to mental illness, and most of the illnesses are quite severe. This was not a handful of subjects who were studied, mind you. There were 17,809 people in the study. It was a very large model as far as psychological experiments go. Until a neurotransmitter or a definitive brain anomaly can be identified and positively identified as a trigger, Dr. Zimmermann and his colleagues have given this condition a temporary name, the misfit syndrome, owing to the fact that nearly 100% of patients studied who professed openly about atheism also had other severe social adaptation issues and many major forms of mental illness that kept them from interacting normally with other people in general. The misfit syndrome, as we have described it in our literature, is actually a profound psychosis in and of itself, said Zimmermann. It should be understood that atheism alone is not a mental illness, but overt atheism, the need to profess one's atheism and to openly debate the existence of a deity of any kind, is almost always a sign of serious mental illness. Many people walk around without a thought about a God or creator, and these people are essentially atheists. These people do very well. The overt atheist, however, people who openly state, "I am an atheist," and then go on to debate their anti-religious issues, are, according to 22 years of intensive research, often very unwell as far as mental illness is concerned. I say unwell because aside from the obvious mental illnesses we have observed, we have also seen a vast amount of yet to be understood mental aberrations. The overt atheist, or those who are believed to be suffering from the misfit syndrome, may carry a genetic defect, and that's the rub. The study is virtually infallible, and after nearly 30 double-blind studies we cannot come to any other conclusions. Does this mean that the face of overt atheism is an ugly face? We are not sure, but evidence seems to point in that direction. They might blame the creator, and by denying the existence of a creator, they are denying their own ugliness. I do not mean to imply that one has to be ugly to be an atheist, but there is an inherent inner ugliness that the patients perceive about themselves. This is clearly evident in social media passionate discussions on the topic. We have found that to be true in about 97% of the cases. You never have any medical study where 97% of your results are positive. It's almost impossible to make a mistake with numbers like that. Something is going on here, and the common thread with almost all overt atheists is serious mental illness or an inclination to develop a profound mental illness by age 35. It's hard to accept something like this, something like the results of our study, in an enlightened society, but there is no getting around the scientific proof. Every variable and every model that has been used comes to the same conclusion. People who openly do not believe in a creator or a greater spirit and opt to debate it as part of their definition of self, are almost always suffering from a serious mental illness, and if they are not currently sick, the odds are nearly 100% that they eventually will become mentally ill. Anorexia and bulimia are also rare in the overt atheist, but much more serious mental unwellness, such as schizophrenia and serious forms of sociopathology, are very often seen in the overt atheists, with percentages approaching 100%. Believers. In other words, people who proclaim to be believers are prone to the more mundane generalized anxiety disorders or various phobias, but overt non-believers suffer from much more profound mental issues and sociopathologies. Here is an explanation of this anomaly from a scientific and philosophical angle. What is God? The mystical scriptures of religions express the idea of a single underlying reality embodied in God, the Absolute Self. The idea of mass consciousness, reflective of superconsciousness, suggests a continuum of non-local intelligence, permeating space and time. This is in contrast with neuroscience-inspired Newtonian view of perceptive tissues locked in the skull. Natural test of assumption. At Princeton University graduation ceremony, it was noticed that the rain is always, miraculously, held off for that particular day or time, proving the existence of all hearing, living God. Catharsis. We delude ourselves with the thoughts that we know much more about things around us than about metaphysical mind or God. So we overestimate material causation and believe that it only affords us a true explanation of life. But materiality is just as inscrutable as God. As the ultimate things we can know nothing, and only when we admit this, do we return to a state of sanity. God reveals to those who earnestly ask for. Materiality is just one of his instruments. Logical and reasoned psychological validation. Nevertheless, stressed/sickened individuals create an atmosphere of stress and sickness in collective consciousness that reciprocally affects the thinking and actions of every individual in that system. Same frame of mind. Collective problems of society are more than just the problem of sick individuals. Such problems are more fundamentally symptoms of stress/sickness in collective consciousness of the society, pushing our youngsters towards avowed-overt atheism. https://shakir2.wordpress.com/2015/06/22/reality of atheists/ https://shakir2.wordpress.com/2015/08/22/ scuttling the mental capacity/ comment/feedback/like/share/follow